Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Future Wives Club. If you heard any children screaming in the background, just ignore that. We're going to get started tonight. We have with us special guest, Apostle Latasha Robinson from Detroit via France or France via Detroit. I don't know how you say that properly.
It's both really. I've only been in France because I literally can't be in. Well, I've only been in Detroit because I can't be in France, but I was born and raised in Detroit, so it's kind of both really.
Kind of both and.
Both and.
Well, I'm excited to get into tonight's topic.
Yeah.
Jumping in because I feel like I always run out of time on the Future Wives Club. Like every time it ends, I go, "Dang, that should have been an hour. Why was that 30 minutes?" But there's a lot to be said about this topic tonight, and we're now in a series of discussions. Tonight being the first one about choosing the right person to be with.
Yes.
And we're gonna look later on in the series about how to identify an abusive boyfriend. We're gonna look at what's your list, what should be on it, what's essential, what's superficial, so that we know how to carry each thing. But tonight we're going to talk about choice and the power of choice, period.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to hear from you as a woman of God who's faithful, who's successful, who has, master's
Thank you.
degree, who has, like, I'm just gonna hype you up, who has our own nonprofit organization, who is
Oh,
literally international with her nonprofit work, as a single woman, right? And
so much fun, let me tell
it,
you. Oh,
okay, and then I'm gonna just cover like the married side of that, and I want to
okay.
talk about choices. And here's why I'm bringing it up, because we can flow, but I'm bringing it up for two reasons. One, I noticed that a lot of women are waiting to be chosen as
Mhm.
opposed to actively choosing themselves. And
Mhm.
sometimes in the desire to be chosen, uh, it becomes about approving our self-worth instead of about actually making sure that we're landing with someone we can build a family with. The second reason we need to talk about choices is because there's a very popular ideology out there that there is one soulmate for every
Yeah.
person. And it's in books, it's in movies, it's in pulpits, a lot of them, a lot of Christian literature. And
Yep.
so and there's a way to spiritualize that. And so on the one hand, it does sound very romantic that there would be one soulmate, one intended, the Christian version, one that God had purposed for us, only one, right? It is very romantic and
Mhm.
beautiful picture. On the other hand, there's like complexity around that. Well, what if that one marries someone else? What if that one was bi and they decided to be gay instead of getting with you? What if that one um died in a car accident, right? Or is that something that couldn't happen in the
Right.
theory of the one? Is that something that actually God would have planned for and adjusted for? So that's the stuff we want to talk about tonight. Um, and I invite you, if you're watching, go ahead. You can get in the chat. You can ask questions. What's
Yeah.
up, Edwaya? I see you, girl. She
I
said this already. Good. Yeah. So, Latasha, what are you seeing here around this topic and the
Okay,
subject we
so
want to
this
talk
is like my favorite topic, and also the topic that I absolutely I understand this. So I'm gonna give you two perspectives. Okay, first of all, as a single woman, every woman wants to be chosen. Like, that's what we want. We want the guy, we want the flowers, we want the whatever you think it is, right? We want that signal that you are choosing us and us only. So a lot of people have no idea that the whole thing around the one comes actually not even from Christianity.
about.
It comes, it's actually a Greek sort of thinking
Huh.
thought process
Mhm.
of soulmates, right? That's not really a Christian, that's not really a Christian
Yeah.
belief
Talk about
system,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So what we've done now is we've mixed Christian beliefs up with what is actually what would be Greek thinking or Greek theology, even in some sense.
Come on.
So it plays into that desire to be chosen, and then the next thing you know, you're hearing God say, "This is your husband" or "This is your wife."
Mhm.
And so we don't always understand how our belief systems and theology actually play into um, what we believe we're hearing from God about another person. And
Yeah.
so, one of my challenges is for myself, being a single woman, being a prophetic woman, is keeping the always in the forefront of my mind that if I choose a spouse or if I'm interested in a guy, that does not mean that God is saying he is the one. It also
Mm.
doesn't mean I need to reject him as not the one if he shows the slightest little sign that perhaps he's not perfect, which men are apt to do.
Since they're not perfect.
Right? Because we are also ourselves not perfect. And so what often happens is, like, because you're so stuck on this one person for you, you
Mm.
aren't always recognizing that really, one, you need to be a healthy
Mm.
person yourself.
That's
So you
good.
don't do any self work because you're thinking that this person is going to fulfill every desire that you have, and that's actually not their job, right? Um,
Good.
or you're thinking you have to hold out and wait for someone for years and years and years and never date anybody, never, which the dating
Mm.
process actually helps you to learn about yourself.
Mm.
And so, one of the things that when women say to me, well, I felt like God said that this was my husband, I go, have you talked to him about, are you dating? Is he interested in you? And they go, well, no, he's never said anything to me romantically. Well, have you said anything to him? What? I'm supposed to say something to him? I'm like, well, it seems like you're interested in him, right? So perhaps you should say, hey, and make your intentions clear, right? About what you intend from the relationship. And that way you don't interpret everything he says and does. Hey, good morning. Oh, he said good morning to me this morning. Oh my gosh, he's in love with me. I mean, God said that he would say that to me. And now I just really feel like, and I'd be like,
Because
okay.
I had a dream that he said good morning to me, and then he said good morning to me, and so now this is a prophetic sign
That's
that
a confirmation. God's like,
this is the
oh,
one.
Lord.
So you said something good. You said dating is actually a process by which a woman can learn about herself. Say more about that.
Right. So when I was in the world, so I'm gonna talk about Tasha BC now. Help her, pray for her.
Okay.
I learned a ton about my likes, my dislikes, the things things that people could say. Like okay, so let me say it like this. When you're in the world, you have a different kind of perspective. You're not necessarily as or at least I wasn't as mindful about what I was looking for. Really, I was just looking to get my needs met, right?
Mm,
So,
yeah.
but there was intentionality in it, and like, okay, this person said this. I don't really like the way they talk to me. I don't think I'm going to talk to them. Like, you were intentional because it was about what you liked and what you didn't like, right? When
Yeah.
we get saved, we get the message of selflessness, which is an absolutely essential message to the theme of Christ.
Yeah.
But what we don't do is we don't realize, like, I should still be thinking about the impact that this person will make on my life. Yes, I am willing to lay down my life. The marriage it's all about sacrifice, but that doesn't mean that I'm supposed to just accept anything because it comes my way. I don't know if Kim, I don't know if you're still there, but I'm just going to keep going. So then what happens is women, we are almost programmed to um, lay down our lives in some sense for our families, which isn't wrong, but we're not always encouraged to be discerning in the sense of in a positive way of
Yeah.
like you hear, girl, don't be stupid, or you hear like,
No.
like, oh, you have to compromise, he got 15 kids and like 20 baby mamas, but that's okay. Like, you got to compromise. Like, women, I hear the spectrum of those things. I never hear anybody say, okay, so what do you even want? from a spouse? What do you want? Not that toxic kind of list thing where he's got to tick all the boxes, but like, what are you thinking about? How do you want him to protect your emotions? How do you want to communicate with each other? Like,
Yeah.
we're not allowed to be that discerning, because
Mm.
those are the things that we're supposed to compromise on, right? Because we all know that men aren't going to be perfect at that anyway at the beginning. So we're not taught to kind of say, okay, I like the way he looks. I don't really like the way he talks to me though.
Mm.
And we're not necessarily encouraged to say, that makes me uncomfortable. We're really more encouraged to say, well, that's just men. That's just the way they talk. Let's just accept
Yeah.
it, right?
See, now we're back into the realm of being chosen, right? And I
Yeah.
think that you just touching on something that means a lot to me right now, because, and that means a lot to God, because every woman is being valued in his eyes as his daughter, and every man is valued as his son, absolutely.
Exactly.
But if we're waiting just to be chosen, then it becomes I see that too. One side of the spectrum is be extremely picky, no one's good enough.
Yeah.
Wait for the perfect man from the movie, from the dreams, all
The
that you ever
lifetime.
dreamed and thought of, which is really unfair, because none of us can live up to being someone's perfect everything every day.
Mm-mm.
Or it goes to the other side and it's like, you know what, just kind of accept whatever. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be alone.
Especially when you get older. They're like, oh no, your list, throw that away, put it in the trash, compactor, hurry up and pick somebody.
But neither one of those is healthy, right? I mean, I think that one of the first things God did when he put Adam and Eve in the garden is give them a choice. One of the first things he did, he blessed them. He said, be fruitful and multiply. And then he said, here's all the trees. And here's the tree
Yeah.
of the knowledge of good and evil. And here's the tree of life. He didn't tell them, go eat from the tree of life. That's clearly the best tree. It's called life, people. And he does tell them,
Clearly, if you were going to
avoid,
choose a tree.
right? Like, if you're gonna choose a tree, doggone it. And he tells them avoid this one because it's gonna cause you to die. But he gives them all these choices. So we see really early on that God values our choice. And I think that's a muscle that isn't really promoted in
Mhm.
conversation to women, that there's roles and responsibilities in marriage. So how about some discussions where we look at what's the roles and responsibility of a husband, and what are things that you desire? It's not that everything we desire is going to be met, but
Right.
we can look at someone and say, how do they react when they're angry? How do they address conflict? How do they treat their mom? How do they treat their female friends?
Mhm.
Um, sometimes as women, I mean, I kind of face this with my husband actually. We can even be confused when they're our friend. We can't tell if they're trying to marry us or if we're platonic. Well,
Yeah.
that might be a problem if you're his woman later too, because he still has female friends, right?
Right. It's
So how,
like, oh, you don't know how to set boundaries
come
with
on,
your
what are his
female
boundaries like?
friends.
What are like healthier things that we can look at,
Right.
that help us make a decision instead of just kind of hoping that they were gonna. Okay, so let's go back to the one. What do
Mhm.
you believe, Latasha? What do you believe about the idea of someone that you're destined to
To
be
be
with?
with. Okay, so real talk, 39 years old. So, do I think that the pot of men that are available to me that love Jesus and all the things are swelling and overflowing? There's millions of them out there. No, I do not. However, I also don't think that that means accept anything that comes my way, because I think that's where it gets tricky. So, what I personally
Mhm.
believe is that it's a choice. There's going to be a person someday that comes across my radar that I'm like, you might get on my nerves, but I'm going to still want to do life with you, or I'm still going to choose to do life with you, right? Which is kind of what I look for when it comes to a potential spouse. Like, I'm not thinking about how I feel just today. And the truth is that those emotions usually, especially if you like somebody, are really going to be strong. But I'm also thinking about, okay, if there's going to be some transition period where maybe you are you 2.0, right? In the same way there's been transition periods for me where I've been me 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, Latasha.
Mhm.
And do I want to grow with you? Do I want to choose to go with you through all those iterations of what God is doing in your life,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So I'm always thinking about not so much about one person that right, I'm always going to choose one person. I'm not so much thinking about you must be the one. I'm thinking about who is the best fit for the life that I feel like one God is calling me to. Am I the best fit for the life God is calling them to? And
That's good.
and also if we're in on opposite ends of the spectrum, which could very well could be because I travel the world. Maybe you're at home, you know what I mean? You work a regular job, whatever that looks like. Is there some places where we can compromise where we won't feel like we're betraying the Lord in
That's
our
good.
own individual walks? And trusting God
Yeah.
to bring that together, because I can't control. I'm not going to be a person, you know. There's an expectation, obviously, when you're a woman that you're supposed to stop doing what you're doing and switch, right? And
Right. There
right,
is.
so obviously, for me, the work that I'm doing for the Lord has value to me and to the kingdom. So then I have to be mindful of, okay,
Yeah.
Lord, well, what does that look like for you to bring two
Right.
people together who might be doing very different things, but also who, trusting you to
Yeah.
help them to be able to walk together. So
How
that's
can you honor
more
the call on your life and what God has given you, the gifts that you have, what you're building already in
right,
the earth, as well as honoring Him and the gifts that He has and the calling He has and what He has probably already been building
right.
in the earth? Not to mention your families,
Mhm.
respectively, and one that you might make together. And so all of those things have to be weighed in.
Right.
I agree. I'm going to weigh in as a married woman. I just, one of the things I wish single women and men for that matter knew is that some of the same things that women believe when they're single are going to be fixed by marriage, some of the same longings and desires their
Mm,
married counterparts are also still dealing with some of those
mm,
same longings and desires. I think that we
good.
can fantasize or overly romanticize what it is to be in the real day to day with somebody practically. And if you think that when you're married, you're never going to be lonely, I got to tell you, I know a lot of married friends who feel lonely. I know a lot
Wow.
of married friends who feel like they don't have the communication or the connection they want with their spouse. I know a lot of married
Wow.
friends who feel controlled by a well meaning spouse. Um,
Mhm.
and there are things to work out on that side. I know a lot this happens a lot in Christianity because the man feels the pressure to be this leader, and especially in times of crisis like this, and to figure it out. And so he's kind of putting forth edicts at the best of his ability. And this wife who's trying her best to be respectful of his role is also feeling kind of caged in and controlled. And so they have to figure out again, how do they both honor
Mm,
its calling, the things that they're supposed to be doing while respecting and prioritizing their marriage. So there's a lot of things that I think as a single woman long ago, I remember thinking would be resolved when I got married. And you get married, and
wow.
yeah, maybe a couple years, it's like, "Woo, we're on this new adventure." But when real life settles in, some of those same heart longings and desires that women who are single have, women who are married have too. Sometimes they're longing for that first love kind of romance from the beginning to come back again.
Yeah,
That's
that's good.
right. A lot of married women get caught up in fantasy because it's been so long, and yeah, they had all the butterflies in the beginning, and now they're kind of daydreaming about the time when they might have them again, even though they want them again with the same guy, or they can get caught up watching those love stories too,
Yeah,
and start to do that. So there's a lot of things that we have to realize that even if we have the very best person in the world for us, we're still going to face these challenges, these
yeah,
difficulties. It's still not going to live up in every regard to our fantasies. Hopefully, some things will be better than we imagine, but it's
yeah.
real. It's real life. It's a real person. I personally think that while there could possibly be one person that is the best for you in all the
Mhm.
world, who happens to also be single, available, in love with Jesus, and searching right
Okay,
now for
say that
you.
part again because he needs to also be single, available, not married.
Not married.
All of that.
value, all
Right.
of that, and desire you, right?
Right.
There's a
And
lot of
actually want
variables that need to like line up right there.
yeah.
Uh, there's also probably a few other people who are also very good matches for you, who you could also build a very satisfying, enjoyable life with and not know the difference. And I think beyond that one and then those three under it, there's probably like another five people who you could still have like a pretty satisfying journey along with. And even if it wasn't that number one best, that God could still, if you invite him in, he could still be the glue. He could still
That's
pull it
good.
together. He can still teach you how to love. He can still teach you compassion and forgiveness and how to be friends with each other and how to support each other. So I'm not going against anybody who believes they found their very best one. I know if you ask my husband, he would say, "No, this is the one in all the world." And amen.
Right?
Amen. There's a lot of people who feel that way. You want to feel that way. But I
Yeah.
think we need to also be realistic about the fact that okay, there's 7 billion people out here. There's probably 10 that you could probably,
And
you
I'll
know,
probably meet them all in my lifetime.
build a
Like
life with.
that's
So
really
if that
it.
number one best person happens to have gotten married to somebody else 5 years ago, let's not like, pray and fast for their divorce or something. Like let's not get crazy.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. I think we also, Lord, do you want me to go there? Nope, I'm not gonna do it. Okay. Tasha, I'm gonna ask this question. I'm gonna push it to you instead. I'm gonna ask this question.
Okay.
What should a woman do if she's wondering if she actually passed over someone that would
Okay.
have been the best person for her?
This is this question. Okay. So because I, do all the counsel, there's usually people come to me, God told me this was my husband or God told me this was my wife. And that person ends up marrying someone else. Or that for whatever reason, that person is just not expressing the interest. I am interested in dating you. And I definitely have had that moment. I will tell a story on myself. I remember there was a guy in ministry school. I just thought he was the bee's knees. And I'm sorry, dating myself, but y'all will be okay. And I legit I was like, God, if this is my husband, not if he's potential, like, Lord, if this is my husband, let him say something to me tomorrow. Well,
Oh,
you're in ministry school, child. You see him every day. He probably gonna say something to you at some point. And
mm,
so he waved and spoke to me, and I was like, and I remember finding out maybe I think the next time I saw him, I barely spoke to him.
oh my
And then
God.
just kind of went on about my
Wait,
business.
that was the sign though. He
That
waved
was
and
the
spoke.
sign.
That was the
That's the
sign for
sign, right?
good. Yeah.
So of course he ends up dating and marrying a beautiful, wonderful girl who I don't know. And I just was like, oh God, like, did I miss my person? And I had to come to this conclusion of like, girl, you asked for the most flimsy sign that you ever could ask for. But two, like you're basing your entire life off of God let him say
Mm,
hi to me. Like
mm,
God took more care than that in creating you. But
wow.
you didn't even
Wow.
have enough value for yourself to recognize like hi was not enough to build a relationship off of, right? And so for me, what I want to tell people, if you feel like you've missed your person, is that you haven't missed your person. You probably, if you're like me and you realized along the way that what you did didn't make sense, what you asked God for didn't make sense, like of course it's okay. Um, or maybe you were in a serious relationship and that person married someone else, or maybe whatever it looks like, just realize that you haven't missed your person. Because truthfully, who I would have married at that moment is very different than who I would marry now, you
Mm,
know? And
wow.
that's just because I've grown, I've changed so much. I wasn't starting ministries and moving to other countries. And had I been married, that probably would have not
Mhm.
happened or been a lot harder because now I'm moving a family, right?
Mm,
Now I'm having to consult, the
yeah.
the husband
Your
to
partner.
say, right, your partner, is this what we're doing?
Yeah.
Right? All of those things. And so I feel like that would have been a much different journey than the one that I was able to easily, not really easily, but more simply walk
Right.
into and say, okay, God, I feel like this is what you're doing. All right, I got confirmation from my community. I'm going out. Versus, okay, honey, let's have this conversation again over dinner about how God is calling us to friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Really. Like,
so
I know you like your job, but I really feel like we should just skip across the ocean and move. That's a different
and
conversation.
leave everything behind. Like, that's a different conversation. And I think that's where we miss it sometimes. We think that the Lord is
Mhm.
holding back that person because we've not done something right, or
Oh, that's
you
good.
know, or even this person that we knew God said we were supposed to marry is in rebellion. I've even heard that.
Mhm.
And they're not marrying me, they're married to some other woman, whatever the case may be. And the truth of the matter is that people choose. They get to. You get to choose, they get to choose.
That's right.
And you want to be in a relationship with someone that you guys are choosing each other.
Ah,
And so you haven't missed your person, because the person that God has for you you're going to choose them and they're going to choose you. And you don't have to worry about, like, if you got this word, because guess what? Maybe that person was supposed to be your husband or wife, but if they chose something different, God's not going to violate their choice. He's going to honor them in what they've chosen. And I mean, I've seen this so often where women will be like, well, he's catching hell in that new marriage because he married that other person. It's like, and because he was supposed to marry me. And it's like, well,
mhm.
but he still chose them. Like, right? And God actually loves him enough or her enough. If they chose
Yeah.
someone and it was outside of his will, he wants to heal them. And he doesn't need you criticizing what is happening
Mhm.
because you don't like it. Like, that, don't add your voice to that. Be a person that prays
Yeah.
for peace, even if people make decisions that you don't agree with.
Don't speak death over their marriage, over their
Right.
union, because you're jealous because you wanted it to be you that was chosen.
Right. And it didn't
Don't
happen.
do that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I just want to say to people who may be watching this and start to think, what if I never get chosen?
Uh,
You know, um, that you are already chosen, that
Come
God
on.
has already chosen you, that you have already been selected and called by name, that whether it's a romantic relationship or not, you have been chosen of God. I bet you've been chosen by some friends. I
Mhm.
bet you've been chosen by some people who you mean the entire world to.
Come
That
on.
there are children in your life, there are people you're mentoring that you've been chosen by them, that they love you. And so we can't make all of our identity and our worth down to the choice of some person that we've never met before. And
That's
if
right.
we get chosen by someone that we also want to choose, I
Yeah.
also bet that you have been chosen by people that you did not want to choose back.
That's a fact.
Okay. And we just forget about all those, right? We're
Anytime.
waiting to be chosen, but we kind of play off all the ones that we wish weren't looking at us. And
You're a no. You're a
yeah,
no.
you've been chosen plenty, okay? But I know the goal is to be chosen by someone that you want to choose to. And
Yep.
I believe that that's a good and beautiful thing. But honey, if it doesn't happen, that doesn't take anything away from who you are, from your
Yeah.
identity, from your life, from your destiny, from your value, from your worth, from your power. You are still amazing and full of life, and you can
Mhm.
have such huge eternal significance regardless. I don't want anyone to think just because we're on the Future Wives Club that if you choose to stay single, because it'll be a choice, because you'll have some opportunities to make some bad choices to marry just whoever, just to be married. But if you choose based on the choices in front of you to remain single, that doesn't mean that you've chosen a life of lesser value or impact or
Yeah.
worth or meaning or beauty.
Say that
And I
again.
think say
Run
that
that
like you
back.
are the
I feel this, like, as a single woman. Let me tell you something. I see some of the way that where people are out here dating people, and I'm like, I don't, God, I know I wouldn't choose that person just based on how they're moving right now,
Mhm.
right? But the culture is, but you're single and you need to figure out who and how they can fit. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, because, and it's not that I realize there isn't a level of compromise, but sometimes it's like, you are you are already a healthy, vibrant person, and now you're being asked to choose someone who's actually going to destroy that, right?
Oh my
Right. So
goodness.
it's such a weird, and like,
Mm.
I find that women are mainly required to do that. It isn't men. Men are like, pick someone you know is gonna match you, da da da. But women, we're like, oh, okay, so he seemed nice. Like he's he he's not
Listen,
nice, right?
there's some crazy thoughts out here in this world right now. And currently, the way our culture is set up, a man is considered desirable into his 40s, 50s, 60s, at ages beyond the point which women are often pursued, at least for sexual desirability. And to be honest, it's really not that for men either. Usually, it's that they're established and they have some finances. And so there's
Right,
women who are willing to accept the difference in their physicality for the financial establishment.
right.
And yet at the same time, there is a bunch of senior citizens catching STDs like crazy. Do you know that's like the highest population of STD transmission
Are
is
you
in the senior
serious?
citizen communities? Yes, it's wild. I don't know what happened. People just lost their mind. They figured, well, my spouse died and I'm just gonna, run around. And I don't know. I try not to think about
Wow.
it. But the seniors with these medications are really getting down. So I mean, listen, just because the world is losing its mind doesn't mean you need to lose yours, okay? There are we still need to grasp that power of choice and use it wisely, okay, at every age, because
Wow.
it's clearly not over. The fact that those STDs are popping means clearly the scene does not die off anymore in 60s and 70s. It is going on.
Someone
Um,
is continuing.
it's
Okay.
continuing.
My God.
Yeah. So that's a funny note, but it's so important that we have these conversations and we let ourselves think about these things and talk about them openly.
Yeah.
Um, and as always, I'm always going, man, and we're already out of time, but it's such a
I
good,
know.
it's such a
Yeah.
good talk. Tasha, we're gonna definitely invite you back and have you on to talk about more things. And I think that your perspective as a woman, 39, so accomplished, so traveled, so well versed, established, when you and someone who counsels other women who are going through the same things. It's just such a good balance to have. I
Yeah.
can't believe I'll be married for 15 years in a
Come
week.
on.
This week, later this week, it'll be 15 years on the
Okay.
21st, right? And so, and we are the same age. So I feel like we have that balance of, okay, we're women of purpose, we're women who are submitted to God, we're women who are about obeying his call on our life.
Yeah.
And here we are, and we can hopefully address more topics and have good conversations, about these things. So
Yes.
thank
We
you,
be
everyone that has joined us. Appreciate you. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and yeah, share this with a friend who needs to hear this conversation and think about these things because we want to get women encouraged and really looking at this stuff with that beautiful, critical mind that God gave them.
Amen.
Amen. All right, y'all. Bless you. Happy Monday. Bye
Bye.
bye.